All right, welcome to this video. In this video, we're gonna go over a simple decision guide. You can call it a mind map, decision tree, decision guide, but essentially, it's really just a quick way to filter opportunities when you're looking at an online business for sale. Quick disclaimer though, the information presented in this video is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered as investment advice, financial advice, or a recommendation to buy or sell any business or investment. I am not a licensed financial advisor or investment professional. Any business acquisition involves a significant financial risk, and you should conduct your own due diligence and consult with qualified professionals, including attorneys, accountants, and financial advisors, before making any investment decisions. All right. It's important that I say that disclaimer because this is not investment advice. Um, I am just a guy that has bought businesses, that has sold a business, and that has been in this e-commerce slash digital marketing space for quite some time. And I'm sharing what I'm learning along the way. All right. So, by the way, if you want access to this mind map, click the link in the description and you'll have access to it. So, we're going to go over three buckets. We have our low risk, our medium risk, and our high risk buckets. Essentially, when you're looking at a business, an online business for sale, you can use this method to quickly filter out what's an opportunity that's worth you spending your time on, or what's something that you should just go ahead and just cross off the list and not waste any time. So the main thing here really is going to be the age of the business, right? Anything younger than 5 years, you're going to immediately put that in a medium or even potentially a high risk bucket. And that's just because it's the percentage is something like over 90% of startups fail within those first 5 years, right? So those first 5 years are the hardest. And specifically for an e-commerce brand, what happens is those first couple of years, you're struggling and fighting to acquire customers. Of course, everybody's case is different. Some people go viral and have more orders than they can even fulfill, right? But then things might balance back out after the viral video kind of dies down. They're back to normal. And so, really, those first 5 years, that's where you really have your hardest time acquiring customers and building your list. After those first 5 years, you should have a big enough list where you have repeat customers. And so you're not relying so much on new customer acquisition as you were before. And that makes your business a lot more stable and a lot less risky, right? And so you want to avoid those first 5 years. The older the business, the better, the safer. The other very important thing here is going to be the traffic because we're talking about online businesses here. So most online businesses, they're generating traffic through sort of paid ads or a combination of paid ads and organic traffic typically. And so what you want to be careful with are these businesses where 100% of the traffic is coming from paid ads. Specifically, if 100% of the traffic is coming from one paid ads channel like Facebook, why is that dangerous? If something happens, like in 2021, we had the iOS 14 updates, and Facebook ads became very tough for a lot of people because of tracking and attribution issues, right? So imagine if you have a business that is relying 100% on Facebook or Google ads, for example, and there's a Google algorithm change, or you get a suspended ad account. That's another thing that can happen. Essentially, all of your traffic is now at risk, right? And so you never want to buy, a business where all of the traffic is coming from a single traffic channel. Anything where you see that, you're going to place that into a medium risk or potentially even, once again, high risk, depending on some of the other factors, right? So let's say it's a business that's less than 5 years old and all of the traffic is coming only from Facebook. that's going to be a high risk opportunity. All right. So you can see quickly how this allows you to really filter opportunities a lot faster. Now, another important thing is the, the the trend, the revenue trend. Is it stable? Is it growing? Is it declining? uh, Especially if it's your first acquisition, you're going to want to stay away from businesses with declining profit, right? It's a lot of work to come in and turn a business around, and you're better off taking that time, that capital, and all of those resources and putting it into something that is already working, because that's the whole point of buying an established business, is skipping that startup phase where things are just extremely stressful. All right. Now, as far as profit, this you got to take with a grain of salt. I think, especially now that I've done more deals and I've helped other people do more deals, I would definitely update the profit range. Where in the past, I actually saw smaller deals as, let's say, not necessarily safer, but in a way less, in a way less, less scary, less intimidating, because it's less cash, less capital that is being invested. But it actually turns out, and I've learned this the hard way, bigger businesses are typically much safer bets than smaller businesses, because they have better systems in place, and there's typically less of key man risk where they're relying on the founder. If you have a business that's doing less than 100K a year in profit, it's very difficult to hire people, hire managers, hire a team, have systems in place where the founder isn't involved in every single part of the business. That's typically what you're going to see with these smaller deals, like 100K profit or less. Not saying you shouldn't do it, just be aware that that's what you're going to be walking into. Even I'd say anything under 250 to 300,000 a year in profit in this e-commerce space, you're gonna see founders probably wearing multiple hats, if not almost every hat, outside of customer service in that range of profit. So all that to say, um, it's a bit counterintuitive, but the smaller the business, you actually have to think about it as riskier, because there's just a lot more things that you're gonna have to do, and a lot less resources and support to be able to delegate and hire or rely on experienced people, right? Smaller businesses, less resources, basically. And then a multiple. All right. Now, the multiple isn't necessarily going to mean that something is low risk or medium risk. It's more so of a correlation than a causation, right? So, with higher risk opportunities, like 2-year-old businesses, for example, uh, that have declining revenue, you're gonna you're gonna typically see these types of deals listed at very low multiples, 1.5x or even 0.7x, and it's because it's a high risk opportunity. And so the marketplace is reflecting that risk. They understand that there's not going to be a huge list of buyers lining up. And so they're trying to lower the price. They might be desperate to sell for whatever reason. Maybe because revenue is declining is one of the main reasons they want to sell quickly. And so with a seller motivated to sell an asset that is declining quickly, they're going to price it very low. So uh, not necessarily uh, a low multiple doesn't necessarily mean that because the multiple is low, a deal is high risk. It's just typically you will see that correlation. And so just be mindful of that when you see something that looks too good to be true. If you see something where you're like, oh my God, the multiple is at 1x, I'll make my money back within 12 months, if not less. Just always look a little bit deeper under the hood and see why it is that that business is actually listed at such a low price. Now, another thing that's going to be very important is your CAC, your cost to acquire customers. And so I used to focus on AOV, which is your average order value, if you're not familiar, which is basically just your average ticket, right? However much somebody spends on average on your website. So if you're selling uh, a phone case for $25 and you have an upsell or a bundle, and for however way you do it, most people who purchase from you on average, they end up spending, let's say, $45. That's your average order value. Essentially, most people measure their cost to acquire customers and their average order value, because obviously if you're spending money on Facebook or Google to acquire a customer, your goal or your whole thesis is you're spending money to buy a customer, and you're planning that that customer is going to spend more money with you than you've spent to acquire them. So if you paid $30 to acquire a new customer, right? You pay Facebook $30 per customer. And in this case, your AOV is $35. You're at slightly above a 1x. Obviously, that's not ideal, but you'd be surprised at how many big brands are scaling at a break-even return on ad spend, or even slightly lower at a 0.8 return on ad spend. And that all comes down to the LTV, the lifetime value of their customer, right? And so there's this ratio called the LTV to CAC ratio. And if you do your research on this, you'll see that anything less than a 2 to 1 is very difficult as far as the LTV to CAC, right? You ideally want to be at a 3 to 1, and the higher, the better, right? So your lifetime value of your customer is typically going to be measured over a period of time between 6 months all the way to sometimes 18 months, right? You could argue that, hey, it's a lifetime, so why does it matter? Just measure it for the entire lifetime. But it's very hard to do that. Most people are going to look at it over the span of 6 months or 12 months or even 18 months, because it's going to be tough to break even or go negative. So basically lose money on new customers and not make that money back until after 18 months. E- Essentially, it's kind of like an arbitrage game, right? You know, hey, you're paying X to acquire this customer today. And within 6 months, you know that you're going to make 3 times more than you pay to acquire that customer. In that case, you can scale very aggressively. The math just makes sense, because you spend $1 today, 6 months later, you've made 3 times what you spent. That's a great return. As long as your margins are good, you're in good shape. But that's something that you're going to want to also ask is, hey, what's the LTV and what's the cost to acquire customers? And make sure that you're at least, at the very least, a 2 to 1, but ideally minimum at a 3 to 1, in terms of LTV versus cost to acquire customers over, let's say, 6 to 12 months. All right. So that's essentially our risk profiles. I focus more on low risk today. If you want me to go over medium risk or high risk, just comment risk profiles in the comments. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Also, feel free to join our school community. It's free, and I have breakdowns just like this in the school community on a bunch of topics, from finding deals, sourcing deals, due diligence, and then, of course, interviews with industry experts from SBA lenders to due diligence, service providers, CPAs, etc. So hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one.